Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Toilets to Titles NFL Show. This is Joe coming at you, and it is Wednesday, October 19th. We are knee deep in the 2022 NFL season. We just blew by week 3-6. We're entering week 7. I've got my dog, Melvin, who's looking to chime in already. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay. Right now, my wife is saving me for Melvin, so he always likes to chime in when I start recording. Anyway, so we're into week 7, and we're 1/3 of the way through the 2022 season. Things are starting to settle in for real. We're starting to get an idea, I believe, of who the good teams are and who's not living up to expectations. There are things that are, teams that are doing better than expected that, you know, things may crash and burn. They may come back to reality at some point this season, but this is definitely one of the strangest NFL seasons I've ever seen. So many teams that we expected many better things from are way underperforming. You've got some other teams, quite a few teams that are performing above expectation, but really I think there's even more teams that are performing well below expectation. So it's weird, except for a handful of teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. Those are like the three teams that everyone expected a lot from, and those three teams are living up to expectations. Um, and a handful of other teams too. I think Dallas is doing well as well. They're 4-2. They just lost to the Eagles, which we're going to talk about later on. But they're 4-2 with the backup quarterback who's been there since like the middle of game one. So Dallas is hanging strong. I had high expectations for them this year. Other than that, man, it's been a whole big. The storyline for the 2022 season has been teams that have been underperforming below expectations, and then teams that have been overperforming well beyond expectations. So we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. We still have basically 2/3 of the season to go, but man, it's been a wild ride so far in 2022. And okay, before we get into the content, just a friendly reminder, if you can, please hit that like and subscribe button. Give us that 5-star Apple review. It really helps us out a lot. Where you can find the show, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean, and Spotify. And if you go to patreon.com/titles, you can learn how you can further support the show. And I want to give a hearty thank you and shout out to all of our current Patreon supporters. It means so much to us, the additional support that you give us. And every dollar that you donate, that you contribute to the show, goes back into producing this show. So we really appreciate it. We really do. We appreciate you, Patreon supporters, and all of our viewers. But of course, our Patreon supporters just a little more. You get a little extra love from us. And of course, last but not least, www.toiletstotitles.com. That is our website. Everything we produce goes up there. I love this website. It has all of our videos, all of our articles. And here at Toilets to Titles, we started out as a fantasy football podcast and website, but we have more and more NFL content, tons of NCAA football content now, and draft content. So we are, if it's football, except for pretty much high school football, if it's football, we cover it. So we have opinions. We've got like 15 hosts and contributors here at Toilets and Titles, and some of us do videos, some of us do articles, some of us do both. So we got everything we do, everything we create uh, goes on our website. And again, that's toiletstotitles.com. Okay, let's dive into week 6. We're going to recap week 6, and I'm going to give my opinion on these games, and I'm going to spend a little more time as always on some games more than others. But anyway, the Commanders are now 2-4. They went to Chicago. I believe it was at Chicago. They went to Chicago. They defeated the now 2-4 Bears, 12-7. That was a Thursday night game. It was an ugly game. These are two teams who are not performing well. I think the Commanders do have a decent amount of talent. They definitely need more. They have a decent amount of talent, but they don't have, yeah, they need a quarterback. Okay, maybe I was wrong about Carson Wentz, even though he's got a decent amount of touchdowns, actually. Maybe they need another quarterback. I think they also need another head coach. I'm out on Ron Rivera. I know Ron Rivera had a good career at Carolina. And I'm not saying he was ever a horrible coach, but I think his time is either past or it's just not the right head coach for this team. And the Commanders do need more talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Even though they're severely underperforming on the offensive side of the ball, and that could possibly be chalked up to quarterback. I don't think it's just Carson Wentz, but Ron Rivera, I think his time has come. I know, was it Snyder, I believe, who's the owner of Washington. I think he's pretty slow in firing coaches. He doesn't really have a quick trigger. But I think it's time to kind of, wrap up the Ron Rivera regime. It's time to bring it to an end. He was hired the same year as Joe Judge became head coach of the Giants, who's gone. He's now back with the Patriots an assistant offensive coordinator or something like that. And then Matt Rule, who was hired by the Panthers, he was just fired last week. I think Ron Rivera, and like I said, Ron Rivera had a very good head coaching career with the Panthers, but I don't think he's doing a very good job here with the Commanders. And again, it's not just on him. I do think that that team needs more talent. However, as we're seeing with my Giants, and I'm not bragging or anything, I'm not just being a homer. As we're seeing with my Giants, coaching matters. It really, really matters. And I think that is probably the biggest issue in Washington right now. As for the Bears, listen, this is a team that's going to struggle. They don't have all that much talent. I still like Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I was watching this game. Justin Fields had his ugly moments. He also has his good moments too. You can see the talent there. But again, I don't know if it's the coaching. He has a new coach, but they need a better offensive line. They need better weapons too. And he needs more time. And he needs more time. So I really don't know much about the play calling over in Chicago right now, but I'm still high long term on Justin Fields. I feel like with the right coaching and more weapons, a better line, um, I think this guy can be groomed, can be brought along to really hit a high ceiling that I think is within him. And don't get me wrong, I was never all that high just on Justin Fields coming out of college into the NFL. But I understood why he was a first round pick. He was worthy of being a first round pick. And I still believe that this guy's got serious potential to be a franchise quarterback. I do. But he needs help. This guy needs help. Like all young quarterbacks, they need help, and he doesn't really have it. And it very much reminds me of the Daniel Jones scenario. The first few years of his career with the Giants. I mean, we'll get into that a little later, but it reminds me very much of Daniel Jones and even Sam Darnold with the Jets and so many young quarterbacks that did not have support around them and people expecting them to step up and elevate everything else when they're learning the game themselves, and it's just not fair. It's just not fair. But I feel for Justin Fields. He needs more time. He needs more time. Moving on to the Falcons defeating the 49ers. This game was a shocker to me. I figured the 49ers, they have Garoppolo back at the helm. This team's ready to roll. Hats off to the Falcons, who second year in a row, man, second year in a row, this team's hanging strong. Falcons are a tough team. I don't remember what their final record was last year, but the Falcons definitely surprised last year. Everyone expected them to be bottom of the barrel. Now, especially with Matt Ryan being gone, with he's now on the Colts, I definitely figured, Falcons they're accumulating talent. They're definitely in a rebuild, and you'd think they would have started off like 1-5 or something like that, but no, they're 3-3, and they just shellac the 49ers 28-14. So don't sleep on the Falcons. I don't think they're making the playoffs, but I'm just saying any opponent that's going up against the Falcons in any given week, don't sleep on the Falcons. That's a tough team. And Mariota, hats off to him, man. He's having a great year. He's having a great rebirth with the Falcons. It's not Geno West territory. Excuse me. It's not exactly Geno West territory in terms of rebirth, but Mariota's holding his own. He's doing well. And hey, man, the Falcons are 3-3. The 49ers are also 3-3. They slipped to 3-3, and this is definitely a disappointing loss for them. So, because they're in a division where it seems like that NFC West, just like the AFC West, or at least the AFC West has the Chiefs, but right now it seems like the NFC West, no one wants to take charge. No one wants to grab that division, by the leash and really take charge at all. So, everyone's hanging around there. Even the Cardinals, who I believe are 2-4. And I see I have a comment up there. I'm going to get to it in 1 second. Okay, the Patriots defeated the Browns. The Patriots are now 3-3. They defeated the Browns, who are now 2-4. 38-15. I believe this is the second week in a row where the Patriots have dominated their opponent. I forgot who they played last week. Maybe it was the Lions. Maybe they defeated the Lions, and I think it was something like 26 to nothing. So, if I'm right about that, that is combined 2 weeks. The Patriots have let up only 15 points in 2 games, and they put up what, like almost I'm trying to do the math here, like well over 60 points. They put over well over 60 points uh themselves over the past 2 weeks. So the Patriots are rolling, and I got to thinking about something that I remember a lot of people were. I know the Browns are a beatable team, but come on, man, the Patriots winning 38-15. Telling you, it's that Belichick magic, man. I've always defended Bill Belichick. I love the guy. A lot of people felt like, I know he doesn't have a great record of drafting, and that's true. The Patriots are definitely a team that is not the most talented out there, and but yet you have a difference maker, not necessarily a quarterback, even though we'll talk about Bailey Zappi in a second, but you have a difference maker in your head coach who's legendary, who's the best head coach in the history of the NFL, and Bill Belichick. And he's an equalizer, just like having a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, like an elite, a top elite quarterback. You have a head coach like Andy Reid, Bill Belichick. Those guys are equalizers. And the Patriots shellacked the Browns. Bailey Zappi, you may have a quarterback controversy brewing in New England. I'm not sure. I haven't followed it that closely, but it could be happening. Because I know Mac Jones wasn't having the best year at the beginning of this year, even though we had new offensive coordinators, and that can kind of screw things up. But Bailey Zappi, who I think the Patriots took in the third or fourth round, I believe this year, uh, it's 2 good games in a row he's had, and he's looking really comfortable in this offense from what I can tell. And I like that guy coming out of college too. I always thought he had a ceiling where he could possibly be a quality NFL quarterback, not an elite, but a quality NFL quarterback, but I certainly didn't expect him to be performing like this so quickly. So hats off to Bailey Zappi. He's doing great. But I just want to talk about the Patriots, who are now 3-3. They're a respectable 3-3. And like I said before, I can never praise Bill Belichick enough. Um, his offensive coordinator or coordinators are Matt Patricia and I believe Joe Judge. I believe it's still those two guys, I believe, are kind of like splitting the responsibility of offensive coordinator, and neither of them have been offensive coordinator before. Uh, that's amazing. I know most people were kind of like scoffing at that beginning of the year. And what I just thought was my thinking was that, hey man, it's Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick wants to try that, let's see how it goes. Because I'm not necessarily gonna. It sounds crazy on the face of it, but when you think about Bill Belichick being the coach who's doing this, let's give it some time and see how it goes. Because he may know something that we don't, and I would assume that he does. It's kind of like when the Dallas Cowboys, I'll kind of compare it to when the Dallas Cowboys took that left tackle. They took that offensive tackle out of Tulsa this year in the first round. And what's his name? Last name Smith. Is it Tyler Smith? I think Tyler Smith. Big dude. And I was very intrigued by him. I figured he'd be like a kind of like maybe a second round pick. And I thought, hey, he could be a really good value pick in the second round. Cowboys took him in like kind of like in the middle-ish first round, and a lot of people slammed that pick. And I saw it as interesting because, listen, and maybe if most other teams had drafted him that early, I would have been like, oh, I don't really like that pick. But the Dallas Cowboys for a long time have proven that they know how to identify offensive linemen coming out of college, drafting those guys and developing them. So if the Cowboys are saying, hey, we're taking, is it Taylor Smith, I believe it was, if we're taking him in the first round, then that should raise some eyebrows in a good way. That like, hey, you know, start expecting something from that guy. And as far as I know, he is actually having a good rookie year. He is starting. I'm not sure if he's starting at one of the tackle positions or if he's starting at guard, but it's my understanding he's doing very, very well. But my point again being is that when people or organizations have a track record of doing something successfully, then you don't necessarily scoff at it. So I just thought it was interesting. I'd always wanted to see that ESPN episode, their series that's called 30 for 30. I'd always wanted to see the two Bills, which is about the relationship between Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And I'm a Giants fan, as you can tell. And obviously, Parcells was head coach of the Giants in the 80s, and Belichick was his defensive coordinator. And there was something I had completely forgotten about that they talked about when They both joined the Giants in 1979 under new head coach Ray Perkins. And Parcells at that time was the linebacker coach, and Belichick was the special teams coach. And fast forward, I think 2 years later, and Parcells is elevated to defensive coordinator, and he decides to ask Belichick if he'd like to be the line if he'd like to be the linebacker coach. So he had never done that before. I don't think he maybe he had worked on defense before. Maybe he had. But he asked him if he wanted to be the linebacker coach, and Belichick says like it was a huge opportunity for him. He was very grateful to Parcells for that opportunity because that obviously led him 2 years later actually to becoming the defensive coordinator for the Giants once Parcells was elevated to the head coach position. And then obviously Belichick goes on to be a very successful head coach down the road, but he really wouldn't have gotten that opportunity without eventually, without becoming the linebackers coach and then the defensive coordinator for the Giants. And that obviously his success there elevated to head coaching positions. But my point being that even the Giants players were saying, like Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson, even they didn't even know really who Belichick was, even though he was a special teams coach. They're like, they knew Bill Parcells because he was defensive coordinator and he was their guy. He was like one of the guys. They didn't know anything about Bill Belichick, and Belichick quickly became a genius of the defense. So the really great coaches out there collect really good minds, and I think they see things in people, coaches, potential that many others don't. And so, what's going on with their offense right now? And we'll see how it goes for the rest of the season. But what's going on with the offense right now over the past two games? I guess with Patricia and Judge acting as offensive coordinator, like collaborating, it's my understanding it's a collaborative effort. Maybe he was onto something. Maybe Belichick was onto something. Listen, my main point, overall point is never lose trust in Bill Belichick. Never lose trust in Bill Belichick. So we'll see where this goes. But man, the last two games, Patriots offense has been looking really good. And I know they still don't have the best talent on defense, but you've got the greatest defensive mind in history in Bill Belichick as your defensive coordinator. Then don't worry about it. Then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, they could always use more talent on defense, but for right now, they've got Belichick to cover up for any weaknesses there. Okay, let me get to the comment over here. Rich Gonzalez, what you know, Joe? Hey, Rich, what's going on, man? Hey, Rich and Nate will be following this show at around 10:30. Uh, at around 10:30 with excuse me, let me wet my whistle. With the betting advice show, that'll be on around 10:30. So I'm kind of like the warm up act for their show. And that goes on around 10:30 a.m. I'm sorry, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good evening, my friend Rich Gonzalez, aka Frito Bandito. All right, guys, so let's move on to the Jets, who are now 4-2, pulled up a huge upset against the now 3-3 Packers, 27-10. Wow, two teams seemingly going in different directions. Is it too quick, too soon to write off the Packers? I believe so because they do have Aaron Rodgers. They still have a talented team overall, even though wide receiver is definitely an obvious weakness right now. They've got a great running game, and I'm starting to question their head coach. To be honest with you, Matt LaFleur. I'm starting to question that guy. Like, what's going on with that excellent running game you have? You have one of the best. Uh, maybe not as good as Cleveland, but it's right up there. Two-headed monster running back core. You've got Dylan and Aaron, and you've got these are two monsters. They work great together. What's going on with that running game? I realize the receiving game isn't what we're used to, but the you still have that monster running back core. What's going on with that? But anyway, the Jets. I don't think this is a fluke, guys. I think the Jets are for real. The young quarterback, a second year quarterback, Zach Wilson, didn't really do much. It was a very quiet game. It was like 110 yards or something like that. But man, Brees Hall, he didn't really need to do much. Uh, Brees Hall has been an absolute beast, and he's been great in the running game and a weapon in the receiving game too. Brees Hall is looking like one of those elite running backs, like a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey, or even like a Kamara. I know Kamara's not having a great year, but you know that his career has always been good running the ball and receiving. And Brees Hall is looking like that right off the bat. So it's kind of been like the Brees Hall show and the Jets defense too. the Jets defense is looking really, really, really good. So Rob Saleh, who was being criticized earlier this year, and he said he was keeping receipts. He said he was keeping receipts on this criticism. I like Rob Saleh a lot. So, hey man, let me tell you something. He's gonna be cashing those receipts in at the end of the season. I think because I think the Jets are for real. And as Zach Wilson becomes more and more dangerous, he's a young quarterback right now. I like it. He really didn't make any mistakes or anything. That's cool. Just don't make any mistakes. Let guys like Brees Hall and your defense do most of the work as you continue to develop. But he's got great weapons to work with there too, with their first round pick in Garrett Wilson, who I have, who I like a lot, and then Elijah Moore, who's been quiet. He's been quiet. Second year wide receiver. He's now the number two wide receiver. But Corey Davis has been having a good year. So they've got weapons, and they have their running back too, and Carter as well. They've got weapons, man. So Jets are looking super, super bright. I actually picked this upset. You know what? I picked the Jets with the spread last week, and I think I took the Packers to win in a close game, I believe. But I'm not surprised. The Jets are looking really good, and I think the Jets are for real. I don't think it's a fluke. I haven't given up on the Packers either because I want to bring up one thing. People always say, and it's not something um, that I necessarily believe in, but it's something that's said quite often, and that is like you look at great quarterbacks and you look at quarterbacks who maybe aren't succeeding, quarterbacks who don't have talent around them. And people are like, well, if they're so good, if they're going to be elite quarterback, they're going to elevate their talent. Well, you look at the talent that Packers have at wide receiver right now, and I don't see anyone being elevated there. And I'm not blaming Aaron Rodgers. He is a legendary quarterback. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's not just a Hall of Famer. He's the top of the top. He's like one of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, at least. At least. But they've got Cobb, who was a veteran, but he's older. He's not Cobb from like 6 years ago. Uh, and then they've got two young wide receivers, and they're just not there yet. I think these are two guys that do have a lot of promise, but they're not yet there yet. But my point being that I don't see anyone being elevated. So I always felt like it was unfair to when you have whether it was my quarterback Daniel Jones or even Sam Darnold back in the day with the Jets, or even Justin Fields with Chicago right now. Like, how much can you expect from younger quarterbacks who've never really had weapons around them, to succeed? And then you look at uh, a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers with the weapons he has, and these aren't any proven guys except for Cobb, but he's older, and I don't see anything going on there just yet. So, point being that listen, every quarterback needs weapons, and there's only so much even great quarterbacks can elevate talent. And I do think these young guys are talented, but they need time to develop too. Every quarterback, if you're going to be a high end quarterback, if you're going to have high level consistent success, you need your damn weapons. You need your damn weapons. And I think what we're seeing with the Packers right now, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers looks old. I think he looks fine. As far as I know, everything's fine with his shoulder, with his arm. He's not injured, as far as I know. So listen, man, a quarterback can't just do it on his own. He needs help. He needs weapons too. Okay, let's move on to the Colts. This is a team, the Colts, who I think are getting ready to roll. The Colts are now 3-2-1. They defeated the now 2-4 Jaguars 34-27. I see that I have another comment up there. Let me just get through this game and then I'll address the comment. The Colts started off slow this year, like they did last year, because for the past 3 years they've had a new quarterback, veteran quarterbacks, but still new quarterback, having to learn a new system, taking some time to gel. That's completely normal. You even had criticism of it, what's been going on for the past 3 years with quarterbacks coming in and new quarterback every year. I forgot who was complaining on the Colts, but or he was either complaining or just pointing out that hey man, we're getting off to a slow start every year because they have a new quarterback every single year and it takes some time to gel. I think this team's starting to gel. Matt Ryan just had another really really big game. He's spreading the ball around. Pittman had a big game, but so did their second round pick this year. Alec Pierce had a big game. Jonathan Taylor, I don't think is back yet, but he should be back soon. But there was it Deion Jackson, is that their other running back, another running back of theirs, put up a monster game. He put up a good amount of yards on the ground and in the air as well. He's looking like a real threat. And so I think this team is ready to gel because the Colts have a very good, sturdy defense as well. and I think this team is starting to gel. They got off to a slow start last year, and that wound up really hurting them, and it wound up kind of like contributing to them not making the playoffs. I know they lost the last game of the season last year. I think to the Jaguars. I think they even got blown out. Like it wasn't ugly, and that led to Carson Wentz being jettisoned over to Washington. And I do think I still thought they should have stuck with Wentz for another year, but I also think that Matt Ryan was at least a slight upgrade. Was at least a slight upgrade, but um, they got off to a slow start last year. I think they started off something like 0-3 or 1-4, and they had to claw their way back. And they did have some really, really close, exciting losses. They were exciting games, but they lost, some really good teams. I think like the Ravens. This is last year, like the Ravens, the Titans. I think the Chiefs were really good games, but they wound up being losses. That hurt too. And so when they did, have that fluke loss against the Jaguars last year, last game of the season, yeah, that was the deciding game. If they won the game, they would have made it to the playoffs. But they had other opportunities early in the year, and they also had that slow start. And so hopefully the slow start this year doesn't, keep the Colts out of the playoffs. And I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think this team is actually better this year than it was last year, especially with Alec Pierce coming on as quickly as he is, and especially with the, apparent seeming emergence of Deion Jackson. I think that's his name. I think that's his name. But he was like the star running back this week with Jonathan Taylor out. So you got Pittman, you got Pierce. You've got Jonathan Taylor when he comes back, and you've got, again, I think the name was Deion Jackson. You got some weapons, man. And Matt Ryan playing in a dome, the guy, listen, he might be something like 37 years old, but the guy still knows how to play football. So I think the Colts are ready to roll. And they defeated the Jaguars. It was 34-27. It's not a blowout. The Jaguars, keep doing your thing. You're looking good. I think you're building the right way. You've got the right head coach. I like your head coach a lot. You guys are, you're going to take your lumps again this year, but you guys have been hanging tough. You had some surprising wins this year. So, that shows something to me. And you have talent. I really like your talent on both ends of the ball. So especially the defensive side of the ball, but I think Trevor Lawrence isn't even close to reaching his ceiling. I do think his ceiling is elite level, and I have every expectation that he will eventually get there. He's not necessarily having a great year, but definitely a better year than last year, especially with a better coaching staff here in Jacksonville. And Trevor Lawrence is looking much more like the quarterback that we expected coming out of college. So Jaguars, you're trending in the right direction. I don't know what your record is going to look like at the end of this year. I think you're going to be okay. You'll be under 500, I think, but I think you're going to have some other really good wins under your belt, and you're going to be a tough team to contend with. And my Giants are facing you guys this week, and they're underdogs, which I'm kind of surprised about. Not a knock against the Giants, not a knock against the Jaguars, but I was surprised that they were an underdog. We'll get to that later when I do my picks. Okay, and before I cover the Vikings game, let's see. Johnny Chefs says he came here for Silas. Silas, actually it's spelled Silas, coach. Silas Gorin will be making an appearance. I think it's next Thursday night. We're going to have a special episode. It's actually going to be hosted by Justin. He's going to have a special episode, and it's kind of like going to be like a Halloween themed episode. I can't make it, but I've been hearing my man Silas Gorin is telling me that he's going to be there, and I hear that Carolina Chris might be able to make it too. I don't know, Coach, if Johnny Chefs can make it next Thursday, but I hear that Carolina Chris may be making it as well. All right, let's get back to the game. So the Vikings, who are now 5-1, defeated the now 3-3 Dolphins 24-16. I'll say this about the Vikings. It's funny about with my team, the Giants. They've been referred to, understandably so, as the worst 5-1 team in history, or at least for this season. Uh, the Vikings could easily, I think, be described as the most quiet 5-1 team, at least this season. The Vikings are a quiet 5-1. They've got one of the best records. Basically, the only undefeated team left in the NFL is the Eagles, and you've got a few other teams, including the Vikings and the Giants, and a few others who are 5-1, like the Bills. I think I believe the Bills are 5-1, and here you have the Vikings are 5-1, but you don't really hear too much talk about which can kind of be a good thing because the Vikings have a history of kind of like, just not living up to expectations. There have been too many times where the Vikings have not lived up to their talent as a team. And they're, off to a 5-1 record. That's good. I think they're going to need to keep this type of pace up because I do think the Packers, are going to wind up playing better. I do think the Packers are definitely going to be contending at the end of the season for a playoff spot. I do think the Packers are going to go on a long hot streak at some point this season. I'm not counting the Packers out, and they're in the same division as the Vikings. So Vikings, keep doing your thing. But you know what? You took care of business against the Dolphins, who are reeling without Tua. And it's really strange what happened with the Dolphins here, right? Last week, Teddy, what was it? Bridgewater was supposed to start. He did start. He only, I think, played a few snaps, got injured, and then rookie quarterback Skylar Thompson, who apparently the Dolphins are very high on. Skylar Thompson came into the game, and the Dolphins lost. But Skylar Thompson is, the Dolphins very high on him. Skylar Thompson he came in as kind of like the emergency starter once Bridgewater went down early. So it wasn't like he was working with the first string offense the entire week last week. This week, it was like role reversal. Skylar Thompson did get the nod to start. And I think he probably played the equivalent of a quarter, and then he went down, and Bridgewater came in as a starting quarterback. So Dolphins quarterbacks, I don't know what's going on with their offensive line. I don't know if that's the issue, but man, Dolphins quarterbacks, it is like hunting season for Dolphins quarterbacks right now because they are dropping like flies. And I'm not making a joke of that, but it is an observation that those Dolphins quarterbacks are getting their butts kicked. And I don't know, maybe it's an offensive line issue. I'm really not sure what's going on there, or if it's just a fluke thing. But Dolphins are kind of reeling right now. They had a hot start. They were looking great. Tyreek Hill, the Hill and Waddle show were looking, and Tua show were looking phenomenal. Tua goes down with a nasty concussion. I still don't know when he's coming back. I don't know if he's expected to come back this week, or I haven't checked up on that type of news yet on who's coming back this week or when. Same thing with Dak. I don't know if Dak is coming back this week. Not sure. So Dolphins, the sooner they get Tua back, hopefully it'll be sometime soon, the better the Dolphins will be. Obviously, the Dolphins were looking like a serious, legit team earlier this season before Tua went down. So I'm not counting them out at all. I'm not counting them out at all for a playoff spot just yet. They're only 3-3. If they can get Tua back sometime soon, and if he can stay healthy, the Dolphins are a serious threat. They were showing that the first few weeks with Tua at the helm. But Vikings, you keep doing your thing, man. 5-1, just keep marching along, because the Packers they may be showing up sometime, sometime this season, probably sooner rather than later. Okay, let's move on to the Bengals, who are now 3-3. They defeated the now 2-4 Saints, 30-26. I don't want to spend too much time in this game. The Bengals, I think this is a get right game for them. I don't like the Saints. I'm not really into that team in terms of the talent they have. This team, I think, needs. I'm not going to say they need a total rebuild, but I think the Saints are in trouble. They're going to need a quarterback. They're going to need a quarterback. And stupidly, they traded the 2023 first round pick that they had. They traded it last year to the Eagles. So the Eagles are going to have the Saints pick. And the Saints are probably going to have a top 10 pick this year. They would have. But the Eagles are going to have it. The Eagles are going to have it. Eagles are incredible shape. Unbelievable. The Eagles front office are geniuses. They really are. How they've quickly revamped their team, and they are now 6-0, and they still have a boatload of future draft picks. The Eagles, including multiple first round picks again in the upcoming draft in 2023. They have at least two. Maybe they have three. I haven't really checked. They may have as high as three first round picks, but they have at least two. Anyway, Saints, you're in trouble. Your quarterbacks really stink. I personally would put Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback at this time. I would. I would. I don't see, Jameis Winston. I think it's just Jameis Winston. Who's the other backup? Andy Dalton. You're gonna win some games with Andy Dalton. You'll win some games with Andy Dalton. Even with Jameis Winston, you're not making the playoffs. I really don't think you're making the playoffs. I love Olave. I think he looks great. I still believe in Kamara. But other than that, I'm really not crazy about what you have in offense. I do like Taysom Hill too, but man, the Saints have really got to find a way to get Taysom Hill on the field for like pretty much 90% of the snaps. That dude is a weapon. He really is. You just got to get the ball in his hands. Um, Bengals, okay, get right for them. They're still looking kind of shaky. Definitely not looking like last year's Bengals. But they're definitely not looking like the Bengals for the previous 5 years before that. Bengals are looking pretty stout. They're okay. They do need help with that offensive line for Joe Burrow. They're going to get Joe Burrow killed. They're going to get this dude killed. He needs more of an offensive line there. He obviously has the weapons, but man, next year that front office had only better focus on O line, O line, O line. Bengals defense has been pretty good this year too, just like it was last year. It was pretty good last year, obviously, and it's looking pretty decent this year too. Okay, let's move on to the next game. My Giants are now 5-1. They upset the now 3-3 Ravens 24-20. Giants, I'll tell you, man, this is proof positive that coaching matters. And it looks like the Giants have excellent coaches right now, from the head coach Brian Dable, defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who came over from the Ravens, and then Mike Kafka, who came over from the Chiefs. He was a quarterback coach for Mahomes. He's now the OC for the Giants. Listen, I like my team, the Giants. I love the way they're trending. I felt, I strongly believe that they had much better talent than was being recognized, and understandably so wasn't being recognized because the Giants' record has been so bad for the past few years. But I felt like they had, a good amount of talent to compete better than they had been the previous few years. I felt like the Giants. I didn't expect them to be 5-1 this year, but I also didn't expect them to be roadkill either. So I think I'm being proven right in that. And I'm not going to, talk about Daniel Jones right now. We've got to see how the rest of the season plays out. I love Daniel Jones. I'm a believer in the guy, but we have to see how the rest of the season plays out too, in terms of, like, any type of extension or something like that. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I do love Daniel Jones myself. I've been one of the guys who's been, one of the fans who's been in the bunker for that guy pretty much his entire career here with the Giants. But the thing is that the Giants, you've got players who are really shining right now. Like Xavier McKinney, which he did last year. Andrew Thomas, which he did last year before he got injured. Dexter Lawrence is right now playing at a level of like top five or top three interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL. Kayvon Thibodeau is coming along pretty well. Evan Neal and Thibodeau, their two first round picks, actually, they both had their best games just this game against the Ravens. And um, listen, here's the good thing about the Giants, and where one at least one aspect of really good coaching comes in, and that is that the Giants are not killing themselves. They're not making mistakes. They're not having stupid penalties like they did the past 2 years under Joe Judge. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. I'm not saying they're the most talented team. I just think that they definitely had more talent than people realized. But they're definitely not the most talented team. But man, they're a well coached team, and I don't think the Ravens look that good. I'm kind of surprised by, you know, yeah, they need wide receivers. They need some wide receiver help for Lamar. Bateman's not turning out like I thought he would. He has been injured yet again, just like he was last year. Bateman is injured again, has been injured this year. I think I think Duvernay's been a bright spot for the Ravens, but this year, but I think that dude's got a ceiling. They need a serious wide receiver one on this team. I thought that might be Bateman, and it could wind up being Bateman down the road, but he's definitely not ready to do that just yet. They need a serious wide receiver one, and they need running backs, man, that can stay healthy. Kenyon Drake had a monster game for the Ravens. And I thought when Kenyon Drake, when he was released by, was it the Raiders? I think he was released by the Raiders, and I had a feeling that the Ravens were going to get him, and they did. And I think that's a really nice match because he is a different type of running back than the Ravens are used to having. They usually have like a Derrick Henry light type of running back, like a pounder, a grounder and pounder. And I think Drake in that type of offense, that type of running offense, and what they do with their offensive line, like scheme blocking for their offensive line. I think this could be really beautiful for Kenyon Drake. I always liked Kenyon Drake. I always thought this is a guy with a really high ceiling who just, with for whatever reason, maybe he just was in the doghouse with his coaches. Coaches didn't believe in him. And maybe he's just not as good as I thought he would be coming out of college. But man, you saw glimpses at times in the teams that he's been in where Kenny Drake, he would have some games where he would just be an absolute star. And listen, I know it's just one game. I know it's just one game. But he put up a monster. He put up monster yards for the Ravens this weekend, and I think he can do that if they stick with him. If they stick with him as their RB1, yes, I'm saying it as their RB1 over Dobbins or even Gus Edwards when he comes back. If they stick with Kenyon Drake as an RB1, I think he could be a real difference maker for that team. I've always liked Kenyon Drake. I'd like to see him get a few weeks as the RB1, where he's getting the clear cut, you know, um, super. the uber amount of touches than other running backs. I'd like if they're going to run the ball 30 times, I want to see Kenyon Drake get 20 of those touches. I want to see what he can do with a legit shot as RB1 in this offense for the Ravens. I think he could be something pretty damn special. And it seems like every year the Ravens pull some running backs out of their rear end anyway. Let's see. Steve Evans. Steve, all right, Steve. Oh, Steve, thanks for reminding me. Steve says he is a T2T fanatic and he provided his Twitter handle. And that reminds me, I've got to remind you, the rest of the viewers, that right now on November 1st, we're going to hold basically a raffle, an automated raffle. And whoever wins is going to win a $100 gift card for Fanatics. And but the only way you can enter, and you can basically enter as many times as you want, is that if you come on one of our shows, it can be any Toilets and Title show. If you come into the chat and if you do exactly as Steve Evans, as exactly as Steve did, otherwise known as Uncle Steve, if you do exactly as he did, and you say I'm a T2T fanatic, and you provide your Twitter handle, you will be entered into the raffle that is going to be automatically generated on November 1st, and we're going to let the winner know on that day, either November 1st or November 2nd, that they won the $100 gift card. And Steve is taking it seriously because he's been in my shows a few times and he's been doing it right. Uncle Steve, it's good to see you, my friend. And I will definitely let Coach know that just like last week, Steve, just like last week, that you did it right, that you said you're a T2T fanatic and you provided your Twitter handle. So I'm going to let him know. And again, if you do it, you can visit every show. We have shows like 6 out of 7 days a week, and you can just pop in the chat and just say I'm a T2T fanatic, and that's another opportunity for you to be entered yet again into the raffle. Obviously, the more times you do it, the more entries you get, and you increase the chance for you to win that $100 gift card. And Steve, I got to say, you've been so consistent, man. I'm rooting for you, Uncle Steve. I'm rooting for Uncle Steve to win this. And I want other people to enter, but I got to root for Uncle Steve because he's been doing it from day one. He's been doing it consistently. He's doing it consistently on my program, which I love. And so I got to root for Uncle Steve to win it. Uncle Steve, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you, buddy. Okay, let's get back to all right. And Uncle Steve, I hope you heard the good things. If you weren't listening earlier, I hope you go back because I already covered the Colts game from last week. Uncle Steve, I hope you go back and listen to the really good things I had to say about the Colts because I think they're about to get hot. I think they're about to get hot, and I think they're righting their ship. The Indianapolis Colts, that is. All right, let me wet my whistle, and we're going to talk about the Steelers and the Buccaneers. Wow, the now 2-4 Steelers defeated the now 3-3 Buccaneers 20-18. Things are not right in Tampa Bay. I think that's pretty damn obvious. I saw. I don't remember if I saw a tweet today or I heard maybe just a brief video clip, like an ESPN talking head. I think it was ESPN saying that he thinks that Tom Brady looks old, and or that he's playing old. I don't think it's Tom Brady I don't think it's that he's old. I know he's like 45 years old, which is unheard of for an NFL player, quarterback, whatever. It's unheard of. I would take something like that more seriously if he was playing old like 10 years ago when they first started saying that Tom Brady was, they figured he was getting old and then, that, he could fall off the cliff any moment. And here we are 10 years later, and the dude is still winning boatloads of games and winning Super Bowls and playing at a high level. I don't think that it's that he's old. I do think that his head's not in it. Brady doesn't look the same. I think his head is not in it because of the whole apparent divorce that's going on with Giselle, which is sad. The dude should have just retired after last year. The wife and the kids, have been going along with your ride as quarterback for a long time now. It's kind of time to hang it up, maybe do some broadcasting and start spending a lot of time with the family. He shouldn't have come back this year. And I think he looks like his head is not in it. It's not that he's old, it's that his head's not in it, because his heart's not in it. So I think Brady really, really screwed up. Anyway, the Steelers took care of business here in a surprising fashion. But kudos to them. Kudos to them. They got a great coaching staff. They got some good young talent there. Steelers definitely need more talent. That's somewhat of, I'm not going to say rebuilding team, but a retooling team. Steelers are a retooling team. And Trubisky played pretty. I think Trubisky actually started this week, if I recall correctly. I think he actually started this week over Kenny Pickett. And hey, they pulled out the win 20-18. Yeah, Buccaneers defense is still doing its job, and man, they're not putting up points. And yeah, it's gonna start. That's gonna start with Brady. That's gonna start with Brady, the quarterback, man. Um, and then we will cover the Rams game when we get to another comment. Yep, Uncle Steve says, thanks, buddy. You're welcome, Uncle Steve. He's always checking in my show. I really appreciate the support, Uncle Steve. I really do. So I am pulling for you. But I want everyone to enter. I want everyone to enter as many times as possible. But I just got to root for my buddy Uncle Steve because he's been really, really consistent. All right, guys, let's cover the Rams, who are now 3-3, defeated. They took care of business against the reeling Panthers, who are 1-5. Panthers are done. Stick a fork in this. There's nothing to look forward to with this team, in my opinion, except for getting the overall number one pick next year. The Panthers are 1-5 now. Rams won 24-10. I think the spread, if I recall correctly, might have been 9 or 10 points. Rams easily covered that 14-point win. The Rams still don't look very good. The Rams of last year would have won this game like 34-10 at least. Maybe even like 35-0 to be honest with you. But they did win 24-10. Rams need help. They need help. Stafford's getting beat up. They need at least one offensive lineman. They need help as a wide receiver, or they need a real stud, proven stud running back. One of the three. Hey, if they can get all three, that's great. That's not likely. But get at least one of the three. I'd say even if they can get offensive line help, that may make a big difference here for the Rams. But they're in trouble. They're in trouble here, and they're lucky that no one's running away with that division just yet, like the 49ers or the Cardinals. The Rams are lucky. They can straighten things out. They've got a great head coach in McVay. They do have a boatload of talent on that team. With Cooper Kupp and Stafford, even though it's my understanding that Stafford's injured, and that's obviously if he's injured, it's pretty much season over for the Rams. But you still got Cooper Kupp and the defensive side of the ball. You got quite a few studs over on the defensive side of the ball. The team knows what it's doing. It's pretty much the same stars that it's been for a while now. These guys know what they're doing. They know all the systems. And again, they've got a great head coach in McVay. So the Rams can turn it around. I'd be surprised if they don't turn around. But man, things don't look good. Things don't look good. And again, it's the offensive line, the wide receivers. It can't just be Cooper Kupp, and they could use a real proven stud running back. And if they can't get all three, which is highly unlikely, at least get one. At least get one. Stafford needs help, man. Even if it's a really good offensive lineman, Stafford needs help. At least get one of the three. Okay, see, I have another comment. I'll get to that in 1 second. The Seahawks. Okay, man, the Seahawks are 3-3. They defeated the Cardinals, who are now 2-4, 19-9. Talk about a team that's reeling. The Cardinals, holy cow. Kyler Murray is not looking good. He's taking heat, and deservedly so. I even think he sounds like a bit of a jerk, to be honest with you. But the main thing is here too, in my opinion, is that I think the Cardinals defense is looking pretty darn good actually. Holding Seattle, who's been putting up a lot of points this year, to 19 points is pretty good. But Cardinals defense, I think, has been stout this year. It's the offense that hasn't been doing anything. And DeAndre Hopkins is coming back soon. He might even be back this week because I believe it was a 6-game suspension he had. So DeAndre Hopkins may be back this week. Confirm that I'm 90% sure he'll be back this week. That's something you want to confirm. But I'll tell you this though, DeAndre Hopkins, even with him, yeah, the Cardinals' offense should be better. They need more. They also picked up Robbie Anderson from the Panthers. I've never been that high on that guy, to be honest with you. Robbie Anderson, I listen, he's okay. He's going to help. He's going to help you more than what you've been getting so far from your other wide receivers. Hollywood Brown is down with an injury. I think for the year. I think he's down for the year with an injury. Hollywood Brown, but he was never a game changer anyway. At best, he was a wide receiver too. And I think they gave up a first round pick for him. Unbelievable. That's crazy. That is crazy. I don't think Hollywood Brown ever had that type of value. And I liked him coming out of college. And he did okay with the Ravens, but even playing with, Kyler Murray in this system, I never felt like that guy was going to be worth a first round pick, which is what they gave up to get him. I thought that was crazy. Even if he stayed healthy and he was teamed up with DeAndre Hopkins coming back, I don't think Hollywood Brown, and he was putting up some decent numbers, but I don't think he's a difference maker. I don't. I don't. And they're going to need more help here. Robbie Anderson should help a little bit. I'm just not all that high on the guy. But I'll tell you what else they need. They need a RB1. They need a proven stud guy, whether it's trading for that guy or with whether it's drafting someone next year, but they need to start taking that running back position seriously. I'm sorry, James Conner, yeah, he's fine at the goal line, but that's all. This guy's not going to be, you know, this guy can't handle like 20 to 25 carries a season, not over the long term. He can't do that. This dude is an injury waiting to happen. It's nothing against Connor. It's just his track record. You want to put him up at the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, and have him pounding the ball. That's fine. He can definitely do that. Obviously, he's proven over his career that he can do that. The guy's a banger. He's a real banger at the line. So I appreciate that. But you really need a true RB1. Someone like a Brees Hall, like we're seeing with the Jets. Someone like a Saquon Barkley on the Giants. Like a Derrick Henry. Even if they're not that level, maybe the next notch below. But you need a serious RB1 that you can count on. And I think that's really hindering. That's really hindering the Cardinals. So they need some upgrades on offense. They really do. But I think the defense has been playing pretty well, just like it was last year. And before I go into the details of this game, let me check out the comment. What happened with Cam and the Rams? Oh, Cam Akers? Yeah, Steve. You know what? I didn't like Cam Akers anyway, but it sounds like he's on his way out, and I don't think they're gonna miss the dude, to be honest with you. I guess I was never high on Akers or Henderson, but actually, I gotta admit, Henderson's actually looked pretty decent this year when given opportunities. Um, but I think the Rams, like the Cardinals, I think they should really be looking to upgrade that running back position seriously. If not this year with the trade, I don't know if anyone's really available, or maybe Christian McCaffrey. Maybe they could swing a trade for McCaffrey if the Panthers will make that trade. And if they're not going to swing it with the trade this year, at least next year, go into that draft thinking, running back in the first or second round. You know, get yourself a real legit running back. Just like the Jets just did with Brees Hall. Just like they did with Brees Hall, man. And but both the Rams and the Cardinals, they got to take the running back position more seriously. They really do. It really helps out your quarterbacks and your offense a lot. And but I don't know what's going on there, man. I think that Cam's on his way out. He's not happy. It sounds like they're gonna try to you know trade him. It sounds like it's a mutual thing, and but I'm just not into Cam Akers. I don't know. Maybe he goes somewhere else and he does better. But I was never high on Cam Akers. I just never was. I was never high on any of the Rams running backs. I just wasn't. Um, Okay, so let me go to the Bills game. Bills are 5-1. They defeated the Chiefs, who are now 4-2. The final score was 24-20. The Bills went into Kansas City and won this game. That is very impressive. So the Bills, except for that hiccup with Miami, and that's not, I don't mean to denigrate the Miami Dolphins win against the Bills because I think the Dolphins won that game fair and square. Except for the hiccup against the Dolphins, the Bills have been taking care of business. They went into Kansas City. They took care of business here. Josh Allen was awesome as always. Bills look like a team that is on a mission. You've got certain years where a team is just out of the gate, kicking everyone's ass, and you can tell this is the team that was like the early season favorite, even like during the preseason, the team that was favored to make it to the Super Bowl and win. And you have some seasons like that, and this team is acting like one of those teams that they are on a mission. They came close last year to making it, fairly close to making it to the Super Bowl. They just lost that crazy, historic, hectic game against the Chiefs in the playoffs last year, and they were right there. They were right there at winning that game. And, they just, whatever. It was a crazy game, and they lost. But the Bills are there, and I think their defense has arrived. I think the Bills' defensive line they've been building with young talent for the past few years. I think that defensive line has arrived. They've had a good secondary for a while. That defensive line has now arrived. The young talent they've been accumulating. The Bills are serious. This is another team I think could still use an upgrade at running back as well. You always want to give your quarterback serious running back help, in my opinion. However, like the Chiefs, they're also like a 70% passing team, something like that. The Bills maybe even more than the Chiefs. But Bills are rocking and rolling. It's whatever's working. That's great because this team is really talented. Josh Allen is playing at an incredible level, and right now you have to assume it's going to be a Bills, that it's going to be a Bills and Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl, and that would be pretty exciting. Uh, Listen, I'm not an Eagles fan. Obviously, I'm a Giants fan, but the Eagles are looking fantastic. And speaking of the Eagles, the only 6-0 team, the only undefeated team in the NFL. The Eagles took care of business against the Cowboys, 26-17. I'll say this though, Cowboys are 4-2. They're hanging in there tough. And I only say that because they've been without their starting quarterback since like the beginning or middle of game one this season, and yet they're 4-2, and they only lost 26-17. That says a lot about the Cowboys. It really does. Because I'm not sure when Dak is coming back. He could be back this week. I'm not sure. You want to check up on that for your fantasy teams. You want to check up on that when Dak is coming back. He could be back this week possibly, but Cooper Rush has been doing a very, very good job stepping in as the backup quarterback and getting the helping the Cowboys get to a 4-2 record and staying in the thick of things. Um, but listen, going against the Eagles with the backup quarterback is something else. The Eagles are stout. They are stacked with talent everywhere. Uh, Quarterback, offensive line is phenomenal. Wide receiving core, the running backs. Miles Sanders is having a resurgence. He's staying healthy. That's the key thing with Miles Sanders, who was always very good, um, but he couldn't stay healthy. Miles Sanders has been staying healthy. He's looking great. The defensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles are stacked at all three levels. They've got talent at all three levels, especially the defensive line. But also, actually, I shouldn't say especially the defensive line, because also still the secondary is really, really good. They've got possibly the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Um, and so Philadelphia is looking incredible. They really are. So, but 26-17 isn't exactly a blowout, especially with your if Dak had played this game and the Eagles won 26-17, I'd be like, okay, wow, that's a statement win. But the score was 26-17 with Cooper Rush at the helm. I don't think it's a statement win. You get the Cowboys get Dak back and they meet the Eagles later on in the year. We're going to see what's going to happen because I think the Cowboys defense is something else. It really is something else. It's really, really good. And they've got their own weapons as well. I don't think their weapons are as good as Philadelphia's, but they've got enough weapons. The Cowboys have enough weapons. And their offensive line's been playing unexpectedly well this year. In my opinion, I wasn't expecting it. I thought they would take a step backwards this year as they're trying to rebuild their offensive line. But the offensive line's been playing really well. When Dak comes back and these two teams play later on in this year, I think it's going to be an interesting rematch. Okay, let me get through this last game, and I think I have another comment? Okay, no. Okay, so here's the last game from week 6. Man, I am all right. The Chargers won 4-2. They're now 4-2. They defeated the now 2-4 Broncos 19-16. I'm so sick and tired of seeing the Broncos on prime time. And this is not a knock against the Broncos. I do not hate the Broncos. I've got nothing against the Broncos at all. I actually respect that team and that organization. I kind of like the Broncos actually. I'm not knocking the Broncos. I'm not banging on Russell Wilson, and he's definitely been having a subpar year. Denver fans are really pissed off at him. Uh, NFL analysts are wondering what the hell's going on with Russ. I'm not. Not my thing. Even if the Broncos were undefeated like the Eagles, even my Giants were 6-0, I wouldn't want to see them on primetime games every friggin' week. Every week it's been the Broncos. It's annoying. It's annoying to see that. And yeah, and it's listen, if the Broncos were playing great, yeah, it would be exciting. I would still say that it's ridiculous that they've been on primetime games every single week. I'm not saying put crappy teams up there. I don't believe in this philosophy that every single NFL team gets a primetime game. I don't believe that. I don't know if it's every single NFL team is supposed to get one primetime game, or if it's a Monday night game. But I know each NFL team is supposed to have something like that, where it's either each NFL team gets at least one Monday night game, or it's one primetime game where it's Monday night or Sunday night or Thursday night. I don't believe in any of that crap. Don't put up crappy teams, and don't put up the same team again. Even if the team are very good, like the Eagles. The Eagles are 6-0. If my Giants are 5-1, I wouldn't want it. They shouldn't be on prime time like all the time, which they're not. And I don't. My Giants get their butts kicked on prime time, so I'm glad they're not. My point being is that enough with the Broncos, enough with one team consistently being on prime time. It's ridiculous. Um, Anyway, both of these teams are not looking good. Chargers won the game. They're 4-2. They're not looking good. They're not looking good. The Broncos defense is for real. They've been playing. They've been keeping the Broncos in these games because that offense is really struggling. And yeah, Russ is not looking good. And like I've been saying for the past few weeks, and I've been saying for a while that I agreed with the Broncos making the trade for Russ. because I feel like they have the talent to contend for the Super Bowl and to contend for the next few years. When you're going to give away multiple first round picks for a proven quarterback like Russ Wilson, that's the time to do it. When you've got all the other pieces in place where you can contend not just for 1 year, but for at least the next few years, then you make a trade like that for an established quarterback like Russell Wilson, where he's going to be around for at least the next like 5 years, and you can make a run to the Super Bowl and the playoffs for the next 4 or 5 years. It's the same thing when they did when they traded for Peyton Manning like 10 years ago. So I didn't disagree with the trade. I agreed with the trade. However, I will say this, and I said this for the past few weeks, that I did not like how Russ Wilson looked in Seattle for like the last year and a half of his tenure over there. I didn't like how he looked, and I don't know if it was him. I assumed it wasn't him, but he had me concerned. I assume that it wasn't the wide receivers. I think Metcalf is a very talented receiver, even though he's got his issues with drops. Or I'm thinking of Lockett, who really has the drops. But um, Metcalf and Lockett are talented. I do believe in Pete Carroll as being a very good head coach. The Seahawks hadn't been good for the past few years, but Pete Carroll took that team to back-to-back Super Bowls for a reason. I think besides Russell Wilson, the two other big reasons were the outstanding defense they had, and uh, and Marshawn Lynch. So, but I still have my concerns about Russ, but I still think he can right the ship. I do. I think he's got a shoulder tear apparently. Um, but I don't know. Maybe it's the head coach just stinks. I think he's a first-time head coach. I think he is. And I'll say this. I gotta say this. It's my understanding the head coach. I never even heard of Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's his name. I think he was the offensive coordinator for the Packers. Man, there's a lot of overrated coaches that come from the Packers. Just like, just like New England. Okay, you have all these guys coordinators and coaches from under Belichick who get all these head coaching positions and they stink, and then they wind up going back to New England. It's the same thing with Green Bay, in my opinion. I think the coaching talent that comes out of Green Bay is not impressive. The Packers play well. Um, they've had for 30 years. They've had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. 30 years of Brett Favre, and then Aaron Rodgers. That's incredible. Um, it really is. So they haven't really had too much to worry about. They've had Hall of Fame quarterbacks, legendary quarterbacks to lead the team and to really cover up other deficiencies that the Packers have had over the past 30 years. Um, but I'm not crazy about the coaching talent that comes out of Green Bay. And he's the head coach of the Broncos. They're not looking good. And the Chargers head coach, I think, is an idiot too. I think the two idiot head coaches, that's what they look like right now. And I think these both teams are suffering because of idiot head coaching. And again, as my team, the Jets are the Giants are showing, and I think the Jets as well. I think Rob Saleh is doing a really good job for the Jets. Coaching matters a lot, and I think these two teams are suffering because of that. So it may not just be Russ; it could be the coaching. But I don't know, Russ. He's not looking good, and he wasn't looking good in Seattle. I still think he can right the ship, but it may have to take getting that head coach out of there pretty quickly because they're not looking good. And I know Broncos fans are furious about it, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I don't know why. I don't know why you go if you have a team that's ready to compete for the Super Bowl. I don't know why you'd get a coach like Hackett, who I don't think has any previous head coaching experience. Why would you do that? Why would you not try? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there are no experienced head coaches out there who've been in the playoffs or the Super Bowl before. Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? The guy that the Jaguars just wound up signing this year. He's doing a very good job with the Jaguars. I always forget his name, but he was the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson. He was available. Why didn't you get Doug Peterson, a guy with an experienced playoff coach? Experience. He's got successful experience in the playoffs and obviously the Super Bowl because he beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Why did you not get someone like Doug Peterson instead of getting some dude who I believe is has no head coaching experience at all? And you have a team that should, on paper, definitely should be ready to compete, deep into the playoffs. You should have had Doug Peterson or someone like that, not this dude Hackett, who I don't think he's ever been a head coach before. I think that's stupid. I think that's stupid. I think that is a mistake. Big time mistake. Anyway, okay, let's get to my week 7 picks. Um, Let me bring this up over here. Add to the stream. Okay, so week 6 results. Continuing this trend in this crazy NFL season. My picks have been crazy, as in not that great this year. I was great last year. I promise you, I'm not lying. You check out the videos from last year. I did great with my picks last year. But everything is topsy turvy this year in the NFL, which I'm kind of grateful for because my team, the Giants, which have stunk for the past 10 years, are actually having a very good year. So that's good for me. It's good for like the Jets, and even the Falcons and Seahawks are surprisingly competitive. It's been fun, but it's been crazy when trying to do your picks. And it's been crazy for fantasy as well. Anyway, week 6 results. I was 8-6 with the spread, and I was 6-8 straight up. There was only 14 games because last week was the first week with bye games, so there were only 14 games. So again, week 6, I was 8-6 with the spread, nothing great. Then I was 6-8 straight up, nothing great, especially when you're under 500. I don't like that at all. For the season so far, with the spread, I am 45, 46, and 3 with the spread. Straight up, I am 48, 45, and 1. Very, very close there. Okay, so let's go into my picks for the week 7 games. Okay, guys. Saints at the Cardinals, 39 Thursday night game. Another boring game. I'll tell you, man. Last year's Thursday night games were fantastic. These ones, a lot of these games have been a snooze fest. Anyway, the Saints are playing at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are giving 2 points. I'll take this, man. I'll take the Saints getting the points. I'll take the Cardinals straight up. I'm just gonna. I really don't know who to pick in this game. Neither team is that good. I do think the Cardinals have a much higher ceiling than the Saints, but I'll tell you what, I'll take the Saints getting the points. I'll take the Cardinals straight up. Let's just call it that way. If DeAndre Hopkins is back, which I think he is, it could be a blowout for the Cardinals. I don't like the Saints, man. I don't like the Saints. I don't like their offense at all. All right, but right now officially, I'll go. I'll give you my pick, and that is Saints getting the points and the Cardinals straight up. Falcons at the Bengals. The Bengals are giving 6 points. Man, the Falcons have been a tough team. Even they're 3-3. Even the games that they lose, they've been a tough out. So I'm going to take the Falcons, and the Bengals have not looked like world beaters this year like they did last year. They looked okay, the Bengals. It's not like they looked like the Bengals from 3 years ago, but they're 3-3. I think we all kind of expected more, but the Bengals are laying 6 points. I'm going to take the Falcons getting those points, and I'll take the Bengals straight up. Lions at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are giving 7 points. I'm going to take the Cowboys giving the points and the Cowboys straight up. Um, you know what? I was making these picks under the assumption that Dak is starting, and I didn't check that news. I was making this pick under the assumption that Dak is starting. Uh, The Lions just got off their bye week. I assume Amon-Ra St. Brown is healthy. I assume DeAndre Swift is playing and he's healthy. But if not, Jamal Williams is still a very good running back. He'd be an RB1 in most other teams. Jamal Williams. But I'm going to take the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys defense is going to be too much for the Lions. I really do. And the Lions defense has not been good. So I'll take the Cowboys, even though the Lions have been putting up points, a boatload of points throughout most of the season. I'm going to take the Cowboys giving the points and the Cowboys straight up in Dallas. Colts at the Titans. Okay, the Titans are giving 2 points. I'm taking the Colts getting the points, and I'm taking the Colts straight up. I think the Colts are a better team than the Titans, and I think the Colts are straightening that ship out. I think they've straightened it out. I think. And I like what I'm seeing with their weapons. You got Pittman, and now you have Alec Pierce as well. Not just Pittman, you have Alec Pierce. Okay. And now you've got, I think Jonathan Taylor should be playing, I believe. And you also have this running back who just put up monster numbers this past weekend. I believe his name is Deion Jackson, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong about the last name. But I think the Titans are looking good. Matt Ryan just had a big game, and I just think they're starting to gel. I don't think the Titans have any other weapons coming to help them. It's either Derrick Henry or bust. Unless the rookie wide receiver, the first round pick, unless he starts having monster games. And I'm not trashing him; he's a rookie, but unless he starts having monster games, I think the Titans are kind of in trouble. they've got still Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's having a really, really good year. They've got a capable quarterback in Ryan Tannehill. He's not an idiot. The guy knows how to play the game. But he's lacking in weapons, and they have a good defense. Not a great defense, but a good defense. Like a very they have talent, but it's also just a well coached team. But there is, I think, a ceiling to the talents to the Titans, and I'm not crazy about them for the rest of the year. They're going to always be a tough out, the Titans, but I'm going to take the Colts beating the Titans this time. I'll take the Colts getting the points and the Colts straight up. I think the Colts are about to take command of that AFC South. That's what I think. Packers at the Commanders. The Commanders are getting 4.5 points at home. I'm going to go with the Packers giving the points and the Packers straight up. This smells like a get right game for the Packers to me. The Commanders are reeling. I believe Carson Wentz is out as well, and that might not even be a bad thing. I'm not sure if Sam Howell is going to be starting, the rookie quarterback, or if it's going to be Taylor Heineke. I'm not sure, but Packers at the Commanders. The Commanders are getting 4.5 points at home. I'm going to take the Packers giving the points and the Packers straight up. Again, this smells like a get right game for the Packers to me. Buccaneers at the Panthers. The Panthers are getting 11 points at home. Panthers are absolutely reeling. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers giving the 11 points in Carolina, and I'll take the Buccaneers straight up. This sounds like a get right game to me. If the Buccaneers don't straighten out with this game and start going on a roll, they may be in trouble. Again, I don't think it's that Brady's old. I think his head and and emotions are conflicted. They're not into it because of what's going on with the divorce. I think that's it. But I got to take the Panthers steamrolling the Panthers. I have to take the Buccaneers steamrolling the Panthers in Carolina. Giants at the Jaguars. The Jaguars are laying 3 points. I'm going to take the Giants getting the points and the Giants straight up. I'm really impressed with the Jaguars this year. I love the way that they're 2-4, but their two wins were against two fairly impressive teams like the Chargers and the Colts. And I think the Jaguars got those two teams at the right time. They've also had like a loss, in my opinion, they shouldn't have had against the Houston Texans. But Jaguars have some exciting talent. Obviously, their young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne's having a nice bounce back year. I don't know too much about their wide receivers to be honest, but they have got a good amount of talent. The Jaguars on the defensive side of the ball, their defense is talented. It's good. It's good. They've got good stuff. Um, but I got to go with the Giants, who are just their coach, and the Jaguars have a really good head coach who I like a lot, Doug Peterson. I really like him a lot. And but I know this game's in Jacksonville. I'm gonna go with the Giants. It's not because I'm a homer. It's not because the Giants are world beaters or anything. And the Jaguars could win this game. I wouldn't be shocked by it. I think these are two fairly evenly matched teams. But I do think the Giants have they keep getting guys back healthy finally. Leo Williams came back last week, excuse me. Wandale Robinson came back last week. You might have Ojolari back this week as well. And I think Wink Martindale, their coaching has been so exceptional for the Giants. And as much as I like Doug Peterson and the Jaguars, the Giants' coaching has been so exceptional this year. I gotta assume that the Giants are going to, and I have faith that the Giants are going to win this game. And Wink Martindale, I think, is going to make things difficult for Trevor Lawrence, the young quarterback Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars. I like Trevor Lawrence. I do think he's got serious that he will be an elite quarterback one day. And I think he's definitely having a better year than last year. But I think Wink is going to make things pretty confusing for Trevor Lawrence. I do. So I'm going to go with the Giants both ways, getting the points and straight up. Browns at the Ravens. Okay, the Ravens are giving 6 points. I'm going to take the Browns getting the points, and I'll take the Ravens straight up. I think this is going to be a close game. Both of these teams have holes. They both have weaknesses, but this is a divisional game. These two teams play each other very, very tough. I'll take the Browns. I think 6 points is a lot. I'll take the Browns getting the points, and I'll take the Ravens straight up. I do want to see. I really hope the Ravens give Kenyon Drake RB1 touches this week. I really do. I'd love to see him get like 20 touches. I really would. Um, Jets at the Broncos. Broncos are given 1 point. Can you believe? Can you believe? Just at the beginning of the season, before the season started, Did you ever think that you would see the Jets at Denver and Denver only giving a point? Did you ever think that you'd see that this season? Even if you thought the Jets were going to be better, which I expected they'd be better than they were last year, did you ever think that it would only be a 1 point spread? That is amazing. But anyway, the Jets are the Broncos. The Broncos are giving a point. I'm going to take the Jets getting the point, and I'll take the Jets straight up. Here's a chance where this could be a get right game for the Broncos. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Broncos are in serious trouble. I think it's a combination of things that I talked about before. I do think Russ. I I do think part of the problem is Russ. I also think their head coach may not be the right guy for the job. And you know what? I gotta say something else. Maybe their talent on offense is not what many of us thought it was. That's another thing too. I was never the highest guy in Jerry Judy. Not that he's a bad player, but I always thought he was kind of inconsistent, where he'd put up maybe one monster game and then have quiet games, like three quiet games in a row, kind of like Doug Baldwin used to do for Seattle. That's what I've kind of seen Jerry Judy's career so far. And I always loved Cortland Sutton. I always saw him as like a true wide receiver one, not a flashy guy, but I did see him as like a diamond in the rough, like people, just like an unappreciated wide receiver who I felt like really was with a good quarterback would be a true blue wide receiver one. Maybe I was wrong about that. Javonte Williams went down, which is a big hit for them. However, you know, I don't know. I don't think Denver's running game has looked all that great anyway. Now it looks like Melvin Gordon is probably out. Maybe the Broncos and Rams should just trade with each other. Maybe the Broncos should trade Melvin Gordon to LA, and LA Rams should trade Cam Akers to the Broncos. That might be a good fit. That might be a good trade. I'm a genius. Look at me. But the Jets are hot. They're looking really good. Their defenses are looking really good. I'm going to go with the Jets in Denver getting the upset. Jets, I'll take the Jets getting that 1 point, and I'll take the Jets straight up. Jets are looking good, man. Texans at the Raiders. Uh, the Raiders are giving 7 points. Listen, the Texans have been playing admirably. They've been playing very well under Lovie Smith, head coach Lovie Smith, who I like a lot. They've been playing well. They need so many pieces. They're obviously still at the beginning stages of a rebuild. But Texans have been hanging tough. I respect them. I like their grit. Um, but I am going to go with the Raiders, giving the 7 points, and I'll go with the Raiders straight up. I just think they're too talented for the Texans. And listen, Raiders need this win big time, because even though every team in the AFC West except the Chiefs has been not living up to par, the Raiders have been kind of the epitome of that, where they're just like the Broncos and the Chargers, but at least the Chargers are 4-2. At least they're 4-2. The Raiders, just definitely off to a slow start as opposed to last year when they were off to a very good start. I expect the Raiders to win this game, so I'm going to take the Raiders, giving the points and the Raiders straight up. Seahawks at the Chargers. Um, Chargers are given 6 points. I'm going to take the Seahawks getting the points and the Chargers straight up. Chargers have just not looked good. I'm going to take the Seahawks getting the points. I'll take the Chargers straight up to win in a close game. Chiefs at the 49ers. Man, the game's in San Francisco. The 49ers are getting 2.5 points. I'm going to take the 49ers getting those 2.5 points, and I'll take the Chiefs straight up. Okay, Steelers at the Dolphins. Um, I assume Tua is not playing, or maybe he is. Maybe he is. Um, the Dolphins are giving 7 points. I'll tell you what. Listen, if two was playing, these are the picks I'm giving under the assumption that Tua is not playing this weekend. Okay, that's my assumption that Tua is not playing this weekend. If Tua was playing, this would be different. This would be different. But I'm making these picks under the assumption that Tua is not playing this weekend. I'm going to take the Steelers getting those 7 points, and I'll still take the Dolphins straight up to win. If they have Bridgewater playing or Skylar Thompson, I'll take the Dolphins to win this game straight up. Uh, if Tua is playing, then I would take the Dolphins both ways. I'd take the Dolphins giving the 7 points and the Dolphins straight up. But again, I'm doing this under the assumption Tua is not playing, so I'll take the Steelers getting the 7 points, but I'll still take the Dolphins straight up. Okay, Bears at the Patriots. I'm surprised the Patriots are only giving 8 points. I think Belichick is going to absolutely wreak havoc with with Justin Fields. Um, and the Patriots offense has been putting up points for the past few weeks, a lot of points. And I know the Bears defense has been good this year. They've been tough. The Bears defense has been tough. I give them credit. They've really kept the Bears in games. The Bears have been in many of their games this year. The games have been pretty close, and it's really been mostly because of the Bears defense, which has been good. But I think this game's in New England. You're going up against Bill Belichick. Good luck. I'm going to take the Patriots giving the points and the Patriots straight up. And that's it, guys. That's the final pick. Is that the second game in a row, second week in a row where the Bears are playing on Monday night? I know they played in a primetime game last week. Anyway, I got a comment over here. Nino Brown. Nino says Joe always knows. You know what, Nino? Nino knows that Joe always knows. He knows a smart guy, that Nino Brown. By the way, Nino and Jared had a great interview with, I forgot their names. It was two female content creators uh, who cover Tulane football. And Nino and Jared had a really good episode last night interviewing these two content creators on Tulane football. Check it out. I thought it was a really great episode. Nino and Jared are always producing great content for us, but I really like that episode a lot. I really love college football, but I really wasn't too familiar with Tulane, with the Tulane program, and that was a really good episode. I check that out. I highly recommend that episode. I highly recommend all of our episodes, but check that one out. I loved it, especially if you love college football. Check it out. They did a great job, really good job. Anyway, let's wrap this up, everybody. Real quick before I go, let me do some more bells and whistles. And well, here's the Twitter handles for me and all of my compadres here at Toilets to Titles. And there's like 15 of us. If you can follow everyone here on Twitter, I'd really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. And let me just get through the last few names here. George Reed, Nino Brown, Chuck Steele. I think Chuck's the last one. All right. Oh, Andrew. Oh, I got Andrew Steele Davis is not with us. Andrew Steele Davis was co-hosting the show with me for a little while, for a few episodes. He may be back in the near future. He was working. He's living and working in London. He's British, and it was a 5-hour time difference. It's my understanding that he is moving to New York City soon, and when he does, he may be rejoining the program. I hope he does. I hope he does. But time difference was just kind of like too much. But it's my understanding that Andrew Steele Davis, who was a co-host here with my show for a few episodes, my understanding he's moving to the States, to New York City sometime soon. And if and when he does, um, hopefully he'll be back co-hosting with me because I really enjoy doing it with him. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, give us that 5-star Apple review. It only takes about 30 seconds and it really helps us out a lot. In particular, the 5-star Apple review. Again, it only takes about 30 seconds and it really helps us out a lot. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Enjoy your week 7 games. I'll catch you next week for the week 7 recap and my picks for week 8. Everyone, have a good night. Take care.